Well, hello guys, welcome back. I had an interesting discussion with Odin. Um Weirdly, after I made that video, now someone had told me a while ago that if you mention something sometimes the way YouTube algorithms act, it will show up in your feed. So that may be why I came across this one video, but I was like, huh. The deity from my past, I told Odin, I said that would actually, and I've told him in the past, not just recently, I said that would actually be someone good for you to talk to. I said, not for them to come back into my life. I said, but he could tell you, this is what she's like when she's upset. And we didn't know at the time I had, anxiety and depression. I said, but he can walk you through this is what she's like when she's upset. This is what helps. This is, how she reacts to things. This is how she's going to react in a challenge. This is how she's going to react in a crisis situation. And this is the point that you don't cross, because once you cross this point, the relationship is over. And I told Odin, I said, part of the reason our relationship ended was because, external factors that really I or the deity couldn't change in my life at the time. My father was dying of cancer, and then, he went through that for about, oh God, it's almost a decade. And then, like 2 years later, I lost my mom to cancer, and I said it was too much. Plus, there were external factors. There were people who didn't think I had any right to work with this group of deities, which, I'm very honorable. And you guys know I won't do anything that's wrong. So it really hit me where I live. I was like, is that so? Is that true? Do I have any right to work with these deities? Do I not? Um, it's a thing of some people will say you can work with whoever you want, and some people will start to scream cultural appropriation, so it's a great big mess. And I said, I think had everything turned out differently, had my parents never gotten cancer, and might as well not play that game, but had it, had my parents not gotten cancer, I'd probably still be working with him. Because my parents would still be here, my lifestyle would be totally different. I would probably still be working with him, and we might have a very loving, warm relationship. It was kind of a kick in the head that by the time we finally got to the point where we felt genuine affection for each other, that's when my life totally fell apart. And I said, he helped. He gave me the discipline I needed to make it through that part of my life, and I sometimes wonder if he claimed me to do that as an act of compassion, because he was loving in his own way, not in a romantic sweep you off your feet, bring you roses kind of loving, but, loving enough. And I said, I've been looking back today, not wistfully, but I'm like, well, he was loving in his own way. It was just like I said, that the silverback way of being affectionate. And weirdly, a thing came up about Bigfoot, and he had a thing about silverbacks in there because the guy thinks that, Bigfoot's a primate. And basically, a silverback doesn't want to hurt you. He will do everything he can. He will bluff and everything else and mark charge and everything because he doesn't actually want to hurt you. They're not a violent creature. They've never been documented killing people. They're actually very safe to be around. Um, and he was kind of that personality where he would bluff and he would roar and everything else. This was a deity of war. So he would bluff and he would roar, and, is sometimes, he wasn't good with the emotions, but then he would want, people to love him like he was super cuddly and sweet. So it was complicated. And, the weird thing is, I've been smelling like rose pipe tobacco and wine very strongly for like a month or so now. Like I will smell it off and on, and I'm doing everything from the logical. Well, they say that smells can get trapped in wood, and this house is over a century old, and maybe it's from like decades ago when my father smoked a pipe, to it could be just something I burned decades ago, like incense or something. I'm going that logical route to trying to figure out who would combine like rose tobacco pipe smoke and a really strong, overpowering scent of wine to being like, oh my god, I'm dying of something and this is a first symptom. So it's been it's been weird, but I said you could talk to him, and I said you could learn from him of where we both made mistakes. I said he would be able to lay it out exactly for you. I said once you got past the point where he will not admit to the mistakes he's made. I said because you're shockingly similar. I said once you get past the point where he's not going to admit he ever made a mistake, and it, you know, I said he will say, well, he did this, he wasn't, quite flexible enough, and he could get frustrated and forget to use his indoor voice. And, he could, lose his temper very easily. And I said, plus I said, let's admit it. All humans have a certain standard. When we work with a deity, we really have in mind, and it's not being greedy, what we want out of life. We have a certain standard. Most of us want clothes on our back and food in our belly and a roof over our head. We at least want those things. And then good health, please. And then once we have all that stuff, hey, I'd like some entertainment and some other stuff. So we all have desires, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's, one thing I will say for New Age is certainly take the guilt out of wanting things. You're probably never going to get that card no matter how much you want it and how much you possibly think of it, but at least they're not going to go, oh, how dare you ask this poor deity for a card or something. No. So I said, I know you and I have reached an impasse because you do not want to give me proof whatsoever you're going to take care of me. And we worked a very long time. I talked about that on Patreon today. I said, but he would continuously give proofs. I said that was the damnedest thing. He was not known for being loving or kind, and he, like I said, he wasn't like romantic or sweet or lovable or anything else. But I said he could give you proof. He could give you proof. In fact, he took pride in giving you proof because it proved what a hard worker he was. And I know most people are already connecting the dots and going, oh. And I said, I still have a lot of that ethic I got from him. I said, maybe that's why sometimes I have a personality clash with Odin, because I have that work hard and be able to show proof of your hard work ethic, that working man ethic of, I will be proud to show you I can do this thing because here's my proof. And Odin worked a lot with kings in the elite, and if you asked a king to show you proof they're going to do something, you probably insult them and get off on the wrong foot. So it's gonna be a thing, and I said it's kind of spooky. You both have so many similarities, depending on who you ask. They're both associated with poetry. They're both associated with war. I said, it's like I'm fated. It's like when I was like being born, some fairy walked by and said, "Yep, all the war deities, that one, all the war deities." So I don't know. I heard, "Yep, back here." So it's kind of weird, and you guys know I'm a sissy. I was watching that. I finally got to see it. You know that testing that mag light in the abandoned cave video. I was freaking out. Nothing happens in that video. I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you, but I'm like, and Odin's like, you're so terribly brave, really sarcastic. And I'm like, it's scary. You get in front of me. He's like, oh no. And he was good humored about it, but it wasn't like the Foxy Loki reaction of, yeah, I'll be brave, I'll get in front, I'll bite it for you. Odin was like, oh, the poor little the poor little wolf cub was so afraid. It's a tiny little wolf cub. I think it was amused, but like benevolent. He expects his people to be braver than I am. I'm like a coward. I'm trying to physically push a god and you can't in front of me. Like, no, let it attack you. They're jumping in the cave and it wants to eat me. He's like, you're literally not in the cave. I don't care. You're watching this on YouTube. Shut up. I'm scared. So, yeah. So if the old deity was trying to come back, we've actually had discussions during the day. I said, I think it would actually benefit you for you two to work together. I said, I love you. I love you very much. But I said, there are ways that he is flexible where you are not. And there are ways you are flexible where he is not. If you could put the two of them together, he would have the perfect deity because they would be flexible when they needed to be, and they would be firm when they needed to be. Shut up, Loki! And they would be stern when they needed to be. God damn it to hell. Don't help. So it's just a thing. And I said, I never really stopped loving them, but there was that thing of, a lot of people said you cannot work with a set of deities, and that really broke my heart. And like, after a while, I started to internalize that, and I agreed with them. And I probably shouldn't have, but especially the way the country's so fragmented now, I was like, that's a thing. I always had a problem of, if you tell me not to be somewhere, I'm like, fine, okay, I'll leave. So I left them, and truth be told, I've already left Lasanta for the same reason. It's just once, because I ran into people too when I was working with her that were like, "You have no right." I'm like, she literally came into my life and would not leave. I had no choice. Um, and she can be very aggressive when she wants to be. And I said, I do want to be honest with Norse gods and see, is this a thing I've done because it's a true calling, or am I really with the Norse gods because I was guilted or pressured into, I hate this thing, going home? Because we know, if we research Vikings, there was no such thing as a pure Viking race, just like there's no pure German race or anything else. We're all human beings. We're all mixed, muddy people, even though we might not look like it on the outside. We all have these strains with, human DNA and Neanderthal DNA and all this other DNA. And they found this new species of human. Well, it's not new, but, they didn't even know this existed. But that's in DNA of some people too. So, it's just a thing. And Odin's very thoughtful now. I don't think we're going back to the International House of Awesome. We tried, guys, but I said it is a thing where it is very stressful to see all the civil unrest in the country and then try to keep the household together, because I start feeling guilty for how horrible some people are acting, and they start to seem to feel guilty for how horrible other people are acting. Even though we can't control the outside, we try to stay together as a family and, comfort one another, and it worked for a while. But I said, I think tensions are just so amped up at this point, that's maybe why we're in the position where we all know. I know Odin's ambitious anyways, and Odin went in an all-Norse household, and it has nothing to do with where the other deities come from. He just doesn't like anyone. Half the time he doesn't like half of his own pantheon. He's at war with them. And then, half the time he wants to know why nobody loves him, and it's like, dude, half the time you love us and half the time you're mad at us. Pick a lane. So, it's been something else. Odin can be very sweet and endearing and loving, and then there can be days where you feel like he's profoundly disappointed in you and you didn't do anything. So I don't know what to do with him sometimes, but his candle has been going bug house today. We did do a lot of work together, and like I said, I'm not throwing them out, but that is something that we had to face together as a family of, why are we an all Norse household now? Are we this way because there's so much tension in the world right now? Are we this way because it's the best thing for me and for them, because I care about them, because they're my family? Or are we this way for some other reason entirely? I mean, Odin's the kind of god that will stonewall me and refuse to give me, any assurances about the future. And I said, if you want to be the dominant deity in the house, we're going to have to learn to work. I said, I will try to, I've tried repeatedly in the past to be like, okay, I will trust you without any signs, but that's not my true nature. And I keep getting this stuff like coming up on Pinterest and like other and videos and stuff like that about, you have to figure out your true nature. You have to really know yourself inside and out. And I'm like, I know that's one of my fundamental needs. I need reassurance. I need to be told it's going to be okay. So I said, yes, if that deity would come to you, it would be good for you two to sit down and talk and, discuss, I can act brave, but on the inside, I'm like falling apart and crying and just waiting until everybody's not paying attention. Then I'll crawl off and suffer in silence. That's just how I am. That's how I was raised. So, and I'm not in any kind of danger, guys. Don't freak out. But you know, it's how I was raised. I will not suffer until everybody's not looking at me, and then I will go suffer. So, if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.